Do you remember the story of Lizzie, the little girl that was selling rocks? I had an experience a few years ago that the minute I posted it, it went absolutely viral. And the story and the post has now been shared millions of times throughout the world. But let me take you back to the beginning so you can know the whole story. I was taking my son to go to work, and we were driving down the street, and just outside of our neighborhood, we saw a little girl sitting on the sidewalk, and she was holding a big sign that said, "Rocks for sale." Immediately, I had a feeling in my heart. Rocks for sale? If this little girl is selling rocks, she must not have anything else she can sell. But sadly, at that moment, I wasn't able to stop because I was taking my son and he had to be to work at a certain time. So we commented to each other about it, but we kept on driving. I was excited when I started driving through the neighborhood, and sure enough, saw her still sitting at her little stand on the sidewalk. So I pulled my car over to the side and went up to her, and I started looking at her rocks set out on the table. She got so excited and she said, "Oh my gosh, you're the first person who's actually stopped today." Another little prick in my heart. And she started telling me about these amazing rocks. Turns out they weren't just regular rocks. Her father, who she only sees a couple of times a year, is a rock hound, and she had found these rocks while going rock hunting with him, and she was so excited to sell these rocks. So I engaged in a little conversation with her, asked her what she was trying to save money for, and she said, "Well, actually, I have a cat, and my cat Goose is my best friend, but we don't have a lot of extra money right now, and so my mom said that if I want to keep the cat, I have to help earn the money to buy the cat food. So I'm trying to earn the money so I can buy cat food so I can keep Goose, my best friend." Another definite little tick in my heart. Here was a girl selling rocks, not just to earn money, but to earn money to buy cat food for her own cat. So I got out a $20 bill and I handed her the $20 bill. And she said, "Oh no, I don't have enough money to make change. I haven't actually had any customers today." I said, "That's okay, I don't need change because I'm gonna buy 4 of your rocks. It says they're $5 each, right?" "Yeah, you're gonna buy 4 rocks? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. If you buy 4 rocks, I will be able to buy 2 bags of cat food for Goose." And she started to get teary. I handed over the $20 and she helped me pick out the best 4 rocks on the table. We continued to visit for a moment, and then I gathered up my 4 rocks and told her, "Thank you so much for selling me these precious rocks." And she said, "Thank you for helping me get the money to buy food for Goose." And I got in my car and I drove home. I could hardly believe the experience I had just had. This beautiful young girl out selling rocks in order to help keep her cat. So I started thinking about it. I put the rocks down, I took a picture and realized that these were probably the most valuable rocks I had anywhere in my yard or anywhere in my house because of what they represented to this young girl. I quickly wrote down a small version of the experience I had just had with this young girl named Lizzie. And I thought it was such a neat story, I posted it to my Facebook page. Within a few seconds after I hit post, my phone started to buzz. And so as I turned it back on, I realized that I was getting all sorts of comments and shares of that post from the minute that I posted it. Within a short period of time, it had 16, 20, 40, 80 shares, and it just grew from there. People could not believe that this little girl was selling rocks. And they were even more touched to realize she wasn't selling them just to earn money so that she could have a few dollars for herself. She was selling them because she wanted to help keep her cat and help relieve some of the financial strain that her mom was experiencing. The requests started to pour in and people started to say, "Oh my gosh, if I send you a gift card to Petco, would you go buy her some pet food to take to her cats so that she can have enough cat food so that she doesn't have to worry about whether she's going to be able to keep her cat?" Things like this started coming in emails, in comments. "If I give you some money, can you take this money back to Lizzie?" Truthfully, I didn't even know where Lizzie lived. I knew that she was sitting in front of a specific apartment building, and I figured I could probably deduce where she was based on the building that she was sitting in front of. And so I started telling people, yes, I'd be happy to take donations on her behalf. And so as this continued to go viral and as people started reading this story and feeling touched in their own hearts, just like I had felt pricked in my heart, I decided to turn this into something good and positive. And I did a secondary post and said, hey, I'm going to collect some donations to take back to this young woman. I knew I couldn't just show up at her doorstep totally unannounced. So I found a way to figure out where she lived. I went back, I did a little sleuthing. I asked some of the neighbors, and sure enough, I found the way to Lizzie's door. But my goal at first was not to talk to Lizzie, but to talk to her mom. I figured I'd better let mom know and make sure all of this was okay with her mom. So I told her mom a little bit of the experience that I had about how Lizzie's story absolutely sent the world crazy because they saw the good heart that she had and they wanted to help her. Her mom agreed. I did the post and I started getting all sorts of incredible feedback and comments, and deliveries started showing up on my door. Boxes from PetSmart and Petco showed up on my front porch of cat toys, of cat food, of all sorts of things that people wanted me to take to Lizzie to help make sure that her cat Goose was well taken care of. After collecting money and donations for about 2 weeks, I told her mom when I was going to be coming by, and I showed up and knocked on the door. And I said, Lizzie, do you remember me? And she looked at me, and at first wasn't much sense of recognition. I said, I came by a couple of weeks ago and bought some rocks from you. She said, oh, yeah, I do remember. I knew you looked familiar. And then I proceeded to tell her how much her story of selling the rocks to help her cat Goose impacted not just a few people, not dozens of people, not hundreds of people, not even thousands of people, but how millions of people throughout the world were touched by her dedication, her entrepreneurship, and her leadership in taking control of her situation so that she could earn some money to keep her cat Goose. And then I presented her with 4 huge boxes full of cat food and cat toys, and I gave her a check for $810. Immediately, she collapsed to the ground, put her hands to her face, and started to sob. Her mom helped her back up to her feet, and Lizzie, through her tears, expressed, "This is the best day of my life." And then she threw her arms around me and said, "You are my best friend forever. Thank you." And then she brought out Goose so I could meet Goose for myself. Together, we held each other and we cried and we rejoiced in the goodness of others. But really, we rejoiced in Lizzie and the efforts that she made. And you know what she said to me then? She looked at her mom and said, "My mom always says, when you do good things will come to you." And I guess it's really true, isn't it? Yes, Lizzie. It's really true. When you do good things come to you. Now, fast forward from that event. I posted even that story online, and it again started to go crazy and viral because people were so amazed to see what happened with the goodness of the world and how it came back to Lizzie. But that wasn't the end of the story. You see, Lizzie only lives a few blocks away from me. And once I knew where she lived, I made a point to go back. And so every few weeks, I would go back and check on Lizzie. And she would tell me all about how Goose was doing. And she was so excited to tell me that they had bought enough food for Goose that Goose was going to be in good shape. And so her mom encouraged her to take the rest of the donations and open up a savings account. And she was so proud to tell me that now she had the savings account so that later on in her life, she could either pay it forward and help do other things like people had done for her, or she would maybe even one day be able to go to college and make something better of herself and go become a veterinarian by going to school. She was so impacted by the donations that people gave to her. Well, I kept going around, and shortly, Lizzie and I became dear friends. She started to go for walks around my neighborhood, and when she realized that we lived so close together, she started going on walks around the neighborhood and stopping by my house. She would stop by and bring flowers. She would bring pictures that she had colored. She would put signs up in my yard telling me how much I am loved. So Lizzie and I started hanging out, and every time I had a project to do in the neighborhood or someone to help or something to contribute to, I would invite Lizzie to come along. "Hey, the neighbor is getting old and he can't take care of his yard for himself. Do you want to come with me?" She would come with me and we would spend hours weeding the neighbor's yard. Now, Lizzie is one of my dear friends. And all of this started simply because I decided to stop when I saw that there was a little girl on the side of the road selling rocks. Lizzie changed my life forever. And I dare say, when I stopped and bought a few rocks, it changed her life forever too.